All right, and shalom, shalom. So I want to welcome everybody to Oklahoma City King James Bible University. And I'm Deacon Micah, and today, then we are just have just an edition of the lesson that I did yesterday on the salvation mechanics for Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the reason why we're doing this lesson, this revisit, is because I'm very, very tough on how I grade my own performance in my work. And usually after my lessons, and I sit back and meditate on, how did I do? Did I touch up on everything that I wanted to touch up? Is there something that I skipped over? Did I explain this right? And sometimes, I'll call one of the other elders and, get like a secondhand just critique on how I did. Was I talking too fast? Is there just something that I didn't give enough attention to? And usually what happened is then I'll make notes of that. And this is why we're here today. So then I was just meditating on it this morning, just like, did I touch up on everything that I wanted to touch up on? And I feel that with Ham and with Shem, then I took care of those and I was satisfied with the way that those came out. Now with Japheth, then there are, some bits with Ezra and with First Idris that I wanted to really go back and chew on and emphasize, because I felt like I may have been moving too fast. Then I know I asked the comment section, how was I moving, and things was fine. But personally, I felt that I was moving too fast. And this is why we're here. So what we're looking at today is we have this big, massive sheet up on the screen. And this is the only one that we're going to be going over. So this is like a bonus precept sheet. All of those little stamps that you see on the lower right, then that's the stuff that we went over yesterday, and that's in yesterday's lesson. Then there's a link in the description box, and if you just want to have quick access to go back to it, this one, just like yesterday's teaching, I'm going to throw it in Microsoft Teams, and I will add timestamps to this timeline, so if you want to have easier access to find specific parts of this. So in this big box right here, right at the top, then we have our captions. So we have first one is the problem our nation was facing. The next caption in orange, then we'll be talking about how Darius affected the problem. We'll talk about, can we learn from Japheth? And we also have Darius's motive and what Darius knew. So, starting with the top, the problem our nation was facing, and this was the problem right here after they were newly come up out of the Babylonian captivity. So the people round about us, so them, was hindering the temple, so this is spiritual, from being rebuilt. And this is what they was going through after newly coming up out of Babylon. And, the people that was round about them hindering and getting in the way from stopping this temple from being built, because they know what's at stake. So we'll look at Ezra chapter 4, verse 1 again, and chapter 6, verse 4 and 5. So now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard the children of captivity builded the temple unto the Lord God of Israel, then the people of the land weakened the hands, so the power of the people of Judah, and troubled them in building. So these people, they're being adversaries, and they're stepping up against us, and they're hindering us from completing the objective of building this congregation, this nation of people, and hired counselors against them to frustrate their purpose. So all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia, that, our people was having to pit up with these adversaries, stopping them from doing what they needed to do, even unto the reign of Darius, king of Persia, which we know when you look further into Precepts, tells you that all the way up until his second year, and that's when he ended up putting an end to things. So with these other nations that's round about and that was hindering Israel from building its temple, the reason why they're doing this is because they know what's at stake. And what's at stake is that if this Jerusalem, and if they were to just sit there and let it be builded, what'll happen is that the Most High, then he'll have that habitation to come and dwell in, and with him being amongst us, he's going to fight for us, and that's going to seal the deal on their kingdom. So then it's a war of principalities, and you have this spiritual kingdom that's trying to be built, but you have flesh stopping it, because that flesh in it wants to keep that dominion. And, these people don't think that they don't know who we are, don't think that they don't know about our connections with the Most High, because then you can easily back that up with scripture. And I believe that I touched up on this in another lesson of mine. It may have been in that 3-part series where I was doing the kingdom of heaven, the warnings 1, 2, and 3. I believe I touched upon that. So, we're going to look at some precepts that shows, how these people there know about these reports of our people. So what we'll do is we'll end up going to the paperclip right here, and we'll pull up our e-Bible from the side. And the first antidote that we'll look at is we'll go to Joshua, and we'll go to chapter 2, and we'll look at verse 10. And verse 10. So this is a precept. So, for we have heard, so this is Rahab letting these spies know, for we have heard how the Spirit of God dried up the water of the Red Sea for you. And know what this is talking about spiritually. When you came up out of bondage. So, these people that Rahab was staying with, they know about this right here. When you came up out of Egypt, and what ye did unto the 2 kings of the Amorites that were on the other side of Jordan, so Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed, which you just remember in Judith chapter 5, and you look at 17 and 18. When the Most High then He's amongst us, then we're not going to be losing any battles. And as soon as we had heard these things, our hearts did melt, and neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. So then us becoming mighty, being fully built, then this drives fear into these other nations. But the Spirit of your God, He is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. And ain't that something? So the God that's controlling heaven and earth, then He's our God. So don't think that this isn't a problem with these other nations. And that's one antidote. Another one that we'll look at is now then we're actually going to go to Judith chapter 5, verse 17, and we'll look at 17 through 19. So we're going to pull up the Apocrypha, and we'll hit Judith, and we'll go to 5 and verse 17 through 19. So we'll use this hand, go down here, and here we go. All right. And while they sinned not before their God, they prospered. Reason why? Because the God that hateth iniquity was with them. And that's where I was touching up on with that precept back in Joshua. That's why then our ancestors, and they was winning every last one of those battles. But when they departed from the way which He appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles, so very sore, and were led captives into a land that was not theirs. And the temple of their God, so that's our people right there, was cast to the ground, so becoming a tale, and their cities were taken by the enemies. But now are they returned to their God. That's a problem in verse 19, and us returning back to God. And are come up from the places where they were scattered, and have possessed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and are seated in the country, the hill country, for it was desolate. So then you see what at stake here. Then if we end up returning into our God and building up this Jerusalem, these other kingdoms, they can't be the head no more, which then I'm going to back that up with scripture. So we'll end up going to Deuteronomy. This will be the first next precept, and we'll go to chapter 28, and we'll look at verse 1. So you can find Deuteronomy 28, and here we go. And it shall come to pass, providing if thou shalt hearken diligently, so building that temple unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all His commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will, so this is a promise, that He will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And this right here, then this is going to cause our adversaries to tremble. We also have more. We'll look at verse 13, which then I'll end up scrolling down and shoot. So gotta redo that. So we'll go to verse 13, and it also reads, "And the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only." So if we're on top, these other nations, they're going to be at the bottom, then we're not going to be sharing that head status with anybody else. So, "And thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath." So that's if thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God. And in this case, since we're talking about building this Jerusalem, we'll just put that, if providing if that thou hearken unto the commandments of the voice of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them, which then if you're doing this, that Jerusalem, then it's going to be in the process of being built. So what we'll do is we'll end up looking at some more precepts, and we'll also look at pull my notes. Next one we'll look at is Esther chapter 13 verse 3-5. So I'm gonna pull that up, and we'll look at another antidote of these people basically talking about us, just say no about us. So we'll go to Esther, and we'll look at chapter 13 verse 3-5. So we'll come on down, which I think this one may, all right, so that's fine. We'll do is we'll just pull up the KJV online. So I have to go to Google. It's this one. It's missing a chapter. So KJV on, excuse me. Go ahead and pull it up. Apocrypha. We'll additions to Esther 13. All right. And this, actually, hold on, let me go to standard KJV so we'll have the correct punctuation. And this is the precept that we're looking for. So Esther chapter 13, verse 5-7. So seeing then we understand. So people that wrote this letter, we understand that this people alone is continually in opposition unto all men. Got to remember, then, if we become the head, everybody else is going to be the tail, and we're the ones that's sanctified unto the Spirit of God. Differing in a strange manner of their laws, in evil affected to our state. So, our good towards the Spirit of God, then it's evil to them, to their state. So working all the mischief they can, that our kingdom may not be firmly established. Therefore have we commanded that all they that are signified in writing unto you by Haman, who is ordained over the affairs and is next unto us, shall all with their wives and children be utterly destroyed by the sword of their enemies, without all mercy and pity, the 14th day of the 12th month Adar of this present year, that they who of old and now also are malicious, which I had showed you in Ezra and also in Idris, how they was talking about us, the same way that we're malicious and evil, who of old and now also are malicious, may in one day with violence go into the grave, and so ever hereafter cause our affairs to be well settled and without trouble. So when we're down and out, just at the bottom, just destroyed, conquered, and subdued, their kingdom, then it remains settled, then it's peaceful, then it's the way that it's supposed to be according to them. But when we end up doing what we're supposed to do, they have problems. So I'm going to take this down and we'll run another precept. So now we'll look at Exodus, and we'll go to chapter 23. And we'll also look at another precept on how all of this is coming together. So me grab this hand, and we'll zoomed in. All right, and this is the precept that we need. So we need Exodus chapter 23, verse 20 and 22. So remember, I sent an angel before thee to keep thee in the way, so that straight and narrow path, and to bring thee unto the place which I have prepared. And beware of him, so this messenger, these people that's going to be speaking the words of God, and obey his voice, and provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice, and do all that I speak, because that word is in that angel, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies. And this is what these other nations can't afford. Having a problem with the Most High, because you're not going to win that. So then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies, and an adversary unto thine adversaries, which we have to scroll up. So he's going to be an enemy unto our enemies, and these other nations, they can't afford that. So what they do is they take crafty counsel, in the same way that it is, back then it's the same today. You got to remember that in Ecclesiastes, it tells you that there's nothing new underneath the sun. So when you look around, whatever wilderness that you're in, then you see that all of these distractions, all of these, lifestyles that's just full of blood, pollution, and it's all set in front of us just to keep us snared from doing what we need to do to build this temple. So when you look at this in Ezra chapter 6, verse 5, so in hired counselors, so you got these crooked teachers and these wise men out here against them to frustrate their purpose. So to make sure that this temple doesn't get built. So all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia, even until the reign of Darius, king of Persia. So these people that's round about, then they're stepping in the way, doing what they can to stop this kingdom from being built. And then the people that were subject to Artaxerxes, they even wrote letters to stop this. So in 1 Esdras chapter 2, verse 16, but in the time of Artaxerxes, king of the Persians, so we have Belamus and Mithridates and Taubelius and Rothamus and Beltinthimus and Selmelius, the secretary, with others that were in commission with them, so dwelling in Samaria and other places, wrote unto him, so they're writing unto the king, against them that dwelt in Judah, in Jerusalem, these letters. So they're even writing letters, and the whole subject of those letters is it's against us. Which in that teaching yesterday, then I actually ran a precept and showed you the letter in this one, then I'm not putting it in here. So in verse 30, then King Artaxerxes, his letters being read, so after he read the letter, King Artaxerxes sent instructions back. So then King Artaxerxes, his letters being read, so Rothamus and Selmelius the scribe and the rest that were in commission with them, removing in haste toward Jerusalem with a troop of horsemen. So now then you have these men out here with their own doctrine, their own private interpretations, and a multitude of people in battle array beginning to hinder the builders. So now they're getting ready to wage war against these elders, these teachers. And the building of the temple in Jerusalem ceased until the second year of the reign of Darius, king of the Persians. So before Darius ended up stepping in and accomplishing that vow which he had made to get this kingdom built up, our forefathers, then they dealt with a lot of snares and a lot of darts that was all aimed at stopping them from doing what they needed to accomplish. And when we look at, actually, then I have some precepts. So we'll look at examples of how, they were being hindered. So we'll go to First Maccabees, and we'll go to chapter 1, and we'll look at verse 45 and 46. So those are the ones that I want to run. So we'll scroll down, and we'll look at verse 45 and 46. So, and forbid. So this is some examples of how they were being hindered. And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple. So, they're being adversaries, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, which that's us. And if you want to apply that today in present real time, look at, what's a part of our lives today. Then we have the television, then we have social media, then we have these influencers out here that our people love to gravitate towards. And, with these avenues out here, especially the television and social media, then you have to watch what you look at, because then if you are not very careful, then you don't set guards for your eyes and for your ears, you can get taken. Then you can get seduced out of the way, and then you end up becoming profaned, and thus then it's Jerusalem and it's being hindered from being built. Also, through the television and social media, then and through these influencers, the controlling nation, the race, then they can also impose these abominable lifestyles on us, such as, homosexuality. Then I don't know if you guys can keep up with some of these celebrities, but you see them from time to time, then they're in dresses, then they're carrying purses. They're pushing this effeminate lifestyle to get our men caught up in this. They push all of this interracial dating. Then they also have these holidays, these holidays that our people are not supposed to be getting caught up in. And not only that, they push these unclean foods, and then they go on our Bibles and they end up removing stuff like the Apocrypha. So they do these examples to hinder us and to stop us from doing what we need to do. So then just providing those examples so you can have an idea of how that applies today when you look at our forefathers, when you read about them in Darius and in Ezra, how, this temple was being hindered from being built. So what we'll do is we'll head back over here, we'll scroll down, and we will continue forth with our lesson. So Psalms 83 and 4 and 3. So they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. And this is what was going on here, and this is also what's going on today. And consulted against thine hidden ones. They have said, so come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. So this right here, then it's describing the problem that our nation was facing. So back then, and the same thing that we're facing today, that they're hindering this temple from being rebuilt. So we know that Darius in his second reign, and he ended up doing some things. And this is like the second talking point for this lesson. It's going to be how Darius affected the problem. And this is how. So Darius then facilitated an environment where Israel could successfully build Jerusalem, so spiritually speaking. And I have this in parentheses because this is an important thing to point out. And he did not teach Israel. And he wasn't a teacher, by no means necessary, but he was reigning during one of their periods of captivity, and he ended up facilitating an environment where our people, then they can practice these laws and do what we needed to do to get right with God. So we'll look at Ezra chapter 6, verse 7. So let the work of this house of God alone. So he's letting these people that's round about us know. No, you leave these people alone and you let this work get done. So let the work of this house of God alone. Let the governor of the Jews and the elders. So these people right here that we're looking at, these elders, these are the builders that we were reading about in 1 Darius 2 and 30, when these horsemen and these multitudes of people was hindering the builders. So let the governor and of the Jews and the elders of the Jews, so these builders, build this house of God in his place. I make a decree. So this is Darius speaking more in Daniel 6:23, that in every dominion of my kingdom, so in every province that I have jurisdiction and control over, men tremble in fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and steadfast forever, in his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. So when we look or try and paint this to how we can apply it today, I'll just use the United States. And we have a president. Let's just move Biden out of the way and imagine what things would be like if Darius and he was the president. And you just see right here in Daniel 6:23, where he's saying, I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men tremble in fear before the God of Daniel. So then he would definitely be facilitating an environment where wouldn't be as many snares and it wouldn't be so many hindrances and just people in the way to stop us from doing what we needed to do. So look at this right here in Ezra chapter 6, verse 11 and 12. So also I have made a decree that whosoever shall alter this word, let timber be pulled down from his house, and being set up, let him be hanged thereon, and let his house be made a dunghill, and the God that has caused his name to dwell there destroy all kings and people. So you're going to get in the way while Darius was in control of those dominions that he had rule over, then you were going to get taken out. Then if you was going to end up doing anything to stop Israel from building its temple, that's what this is going towards. That shall put to their hand to alter and to destroy this house of God, which is at Jerusalem. So I, Darius, so he's making a proclamation, have made a decree, and let it be done with speed. So Darius, and if he was alive and you just move Biden out of the way, you put Darius there, a lot of these Christian churches that you see that are round about us today, then they would have problems. A lot of these programs on the television, then they would have problems. A lot of these influencers, then they would have problems. And a lot of these local governments, and as well as some of the departments within our federal government, they would have problems too. Because if you were going to do anything that was going to end up hindering Jerusalem from being rebuilt, he was going to take you out. So we have Colossians 2 and 14 to get like a precept, just more understanding with this. So blotting out the handwriting of ordinances, so precepts and instructions that was against us, which was contrary to us, and taking it out of the way. So when you look at this precept right here, then you just run that back up with Ezra 6 and 11 and 12. So also I have made a decree that whosoever shall alter this word, let timber be pulled down from his house and be set up, and let him be hanged thereon. So any sort of snare and any sort of trap, any web that you thought that you was going to set up to stop Israel from being builded, you were going to be taken out of the way. Got Galatians 5 and 17, and this is why. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other. And we know that Darius, and he's upholding the upright. So doing fleshly things, evil things to prevent this kingdom from being built, you got to go. Then you're not going to add or subtract. So this is what Darius ultimately, then how he was affecting this Jerusalem being built. Then he was not a teacher or a judge over Israel, but he facilitated an environment to where these judges and these elders could get this place built. So what we'll go down and look at is which that'll bring us right into our next talking point right here. So does that mean that we can learn from Japheth? No. Then you can't. And precepts that we'll look at is we have Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 2. So this is one of them. So thus saith the Lord, so the Spirit of God, learn not the way of the heathen. That's clear right there. And be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. It's a full thought. So we're not learning the way of the heathen. Most High, then he already gave us a law and instructions to keep, which we'll see this right here in Leviticus chapter 24, verse 22 and 29. So you shall have one manner of law, as well for the stranger, so of Ham that's going to join with us, as for one of your own country, for I am the Lord your God. They shall therefore keep mine ordinance, so my instructions and precepts, or else, and if you're not keeping it, they bear sin for it and die therefore. So that's the aftermath if they profane it. So I, the Spirit of God, do sanctify them. So we're set apart. So you do not learn from Japheth. We're learning out of the 1611. We're keeping his precepts diligently. And another thing that, I wanted to touch upon that I didn't get the opportunity to do yesterday because it skipped over me is we're not learning from Japheth, and we are not laying with them, sleeping with them, having kids with them, marrying them either. And, I had to make sure that I brought that one in there because there are people that hold to that swirling lifestyle that look at my channel. So we'll go to Leviticus and we'll run that precept. So we'll go to Leviticus chapter 19 and we'll look at verse 19. So, and this is the precept right here, just so I can show it. You shall keep my statutes. So thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. And there it is right there. And thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed. So you're not mixing this word. Neither shall a garment mingled of linen and woolen come upon thee. So not learning from Japheth, not mixing with them. And, another precept that I want to also show is we'll go to Tobit and we will look at chapter 1 and we'll look at this right here, verse 10 through 12. And when we were carried away captives to Nineveh, all my brethren and those that were of my kindred did eat of the bread, so the doctrine of the Gentiles. But I, so this is Tobit, kept myself from eating. Didn't learn the way of the Gentiles, because I remembered God with all my heart. So, not learning this bread of the Gentiles, which, that'll just run that circuit again when we go back to Leviticus 24 and 22 and Leviticus 22 and 9. So you shall have one manner of law, as well for the strangers as for one of your own country. For I am the Lord your God. They shall therefore keep mine ordinance, or else they bear sin for it and die therefore, if they profane it. So I, the Lord, do sanctify them, so set them apart. So you can look at this as, going to First Maccabees 1 and 41 through 43. King Antiochus, and he comes up on the scene, wanting everybody to be one people, wanting the Israelites to also join to his religion. No, not learning the way of the Gentiles, and we're remembering what God instructed us. So, no, then you don't learn from Japheth. And next thing that we'll look at is Darius and his motives for why then he ended up doing what he did, because this was something that I wanted to touch up on and give it more time. So Darius and his motive, deliverance. And this is precepts that we'll look to correct this. So we have Ezra 6 and 7, and we'll look at Ezra 6 and 10. So let the work of this house of God alone. So you leave it alone. And let the governor of the Jews and the elders of the Jews build this house of God in his place. That they, so this is a purpose, that they may offer sacrifices of sweet saviors unto the God of heaven, and so including pray for the life of the king and of his sons. So you see how right at the very end of that 6 and 10, then there's that request the king has, and it's the same one that Rahab then she had for those two spies, and she wanted a token. Then she wanted that kindness showed unto her. So in Joshua 2 and 12 and 13, so now therefore I pray you, so swear unto me by the Spirit of God, since I have showed you kindness, which this is also what Darius was doing, that you will also show kindness unto my father's house and give me a true token, and that you will save alive my father and my mother and my brethren and my sisters and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death, which you just tied it right to this right here, and pray for the life of the king and of his sons. So Darius, then you just know that he knew about this right here, this Genesis 12 and 3. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Which we looked at that in my previous teaching, that of those three sons of Noah, so Ham, Shem, and Japheth, the whole earth and its overspread. So Japheth, and I mean not Japheth, Darius, and he's pulling a Rahab. But the court which is without the temple, so leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. So Darius, and he knew about this right here. And, ultimately, the last talking point that I have is not all Gentiles, then they're bad. And I can tell you that personally, then I've met some that reminds me a whole lot like Darius, that they're going to be a blessing. They'll do things for you out of the kindness of their heart, and they are just not an offense. They're not a stumbling block. I've met a few that really do remind me of Darius, and then I've fortunately have met some that are just like Anticus, where they're going to stop at nothing and try and oppress you. So concerning Japheth, it just depends on how they're going to deal with Israel. Either you can be a Darius and uphold the upright, or be an Anticus and end up acting as an oppressor, and that's going to dictate their resting place. They can either be Revelations 11 and 2, or to be Revelations 8 and 7 right here. So the first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with life, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of the trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. So that's just this extra research, and just coming back and revisiting this slide, just making sure that I got all of that taken care of. So wasn't going to stay before you long. Just wanted to make sure that everybody, then they're cleared and they understand these precepts, and there was just nothing confusing and nothing that I sped over too fast. So then I'm going to just wait on the comment section. Okay, so, all right. So with that being said, family, until next time, peace.